Hi, my name is Joe. I play games. Let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Joe Prata. I'm the creator of Roleplay Game. I play a lot of tabletop games. Why am I saying this? Well, because I'm starting a series. This is going to be episode 1 of Roleplay Games video vlog. I get new to it. I want to do it. I want to try it out. Because I got some opinions. And I see all these people in the interwebs talking about all their opinions on how to do things, how to be a better GM, how you run these encounters, how to build dungeons, how to play certain games, their opinions on different types of systems. And I want to be part of that conversation. I've been playing games for about, 5, 10, 12 years? 12 years. I started playing Dungeons and Dragons right when I got out of high school. I was in junior college. It was in my hometown. And I didn't really know a whole lot about it. And so I had friends who were really into it, who had been into it since high school. And they got me into it. And it's been a slippery slope ever since. They got me. I'm hooked. I'm completely hooked. I've had a lot of experience with being at a table. And I think today's video vlog number 1, is going to be mostly about how much I detest the Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition book. It's fine. I don't have any particular qualms with it, but unfortunately, I have been indoctrinated into so many other games that it's really hard for me as a player or as a GM to come back to this system in particular. And here's why. When I play tabletop games, I'm often looking for a narrative adventure. I think some of the most fantastic moments at my tables have been when I have been given the opportunity to do something really, really clever, really, really silly, or something to really elevate the adventure as its whole. There's one adventure, particularly in Dungeons and Dragons, that I was a part of, and I was playing this kobold named, what was his name? Oh no, it wasn't 5th edition. That's why I loved it so much. We were playing a Pathfinder game, and what I was playing a kobold who had leveled up his theft. He was really good at like doing dexterity moves. I was trying to do like a dirty fighter kind of style rogue. But what I ended up doing is I had all these extra skill points, and I wanted to specialize in one skill on the player sheet, which was called, I think it was, it was a really silly skill that I had never seen on any other character sheet before. I think it was called evaluate, like compensate. It was something to do with evaluating the price of a certain object. And so what I would do, I would go into these situations, I'd go into the room, I'd let all my party kind of figure out like who's the main character, what's the adventure, what's the enemies, what are we doing here? And then I'd stop and I'd be in the background and like, all right, hey, I only have one question. How much is that worth? And how easy is it to steal? And that was my whole characters. Every time we walked into a room, I would go, hey, let me roll this skill that I've put 21 points into and just see how much it's worth. That's all I'm doing. I'm just evaluating the price of this particular item. And I loved it. I loved it so much. It was one of those things where we'd start walking into nicer and nicer rooms, and the party would kind of look at me and go like, hey, what are you doing over there? I know what you're thinking. You haven't said anything yet, but I know what you're thinking. And I thought that was like ingenious. It was a really good way to like be a part of the game, like because it was a skill that had no other value except for like maybe the mechanical value of creating like a market for players to explore, like some sort of bazaar. And it was really, really niche. It was a very niche skill, but I was able to kind of cling on to it and make it everything that was my character. And that's why I loved it so much. In 5th edition, I don't get that. I get that as the DM, but I don't get as the player. I think one thing that I've really explored with roleplay game in general is this diversity of games, that there's so many systems out there. This bookshelf right here is full of Dungeons and Dragons, but a large portion of the games that I play, they're not. Like I play the Fallout, I play Cyberpunk, I play Wild Sea. There's some other here that I've just got that I'm looking into. And what I really like about them is that a lot of their skills or the way that they make roles and characters kind of interact with the world is very non-mechanical. And when I say that, it's not like there aren't rules. Like it's not pure anarchy. It's a conversation between the player and the GM, which I really, really enjoy. I was thinking about this conversation today because I have this conversation a lot with the people and the players that I play with of, Joe, why don't you like D&D? Like, why do you want to come at my table? Do you want to join D&D 5th edition? I'm like, no, I'd rather not, actually. If I'm going to show up at a 5th edition table, I'm going to be a GM because that's what I like to be. I like to create a story. And I often reflect to myself as like, do I like the power fantasy of being able to create a world? Do I like being able to tell people that they can and cannot do things? Is it the all the perks of like being a GM that I really enjoy holding over all the other players? And yes is like the small answer. Like I really enjoy when I'm not at the table really building a world. Like I love writing out stories of characters, stories of the world, lore, monster stories, backstories. I think that's like a big thing for me in tabletop role play. Is that as a character, I'm very limited to this one person and their backstory and their family. But even then, like I have to place it in somebody else's world. That if they're doing a really big campaign, then I have to work within the confines of the realms that they're building. I don't get to just put magical elves underneath the ground without the permission of somebody else first. But as a GM, I'm usually one kind of going like, yeah, magical elves everywhere. Yeah, that's where they live. And if I'm playing with characters when I do that, generally I go, yes, I would love to do that. I love that spirit of the game. But with 5th edition in particular, I don't feel like it's very incentivized to build that relationship unless you have a really good GM. And I don't know. This is where I kind of get on my on my pedestal here when I start talking about other games is there are so many games who have actually like built rules, built structures and like specifically like manuals for GMs to really incorporate that into their gameplay. I think we see a lot of GMs in our modern culture who have had the blessing of like being surrounded by really good storytellers or have been taught to be storytellers. I think a lot of the success that I talk about, like I primarily base it on Dimension 20. I think they're great. I think everything they do is fantastic. But always my biggest thing is just like, why are we playing D&D? And they don't. They play other games too, which I really like. But one thing that I'm always thinking about is that like Brendan Lee Mulligan, Matt Mercer, Brian Irongard, like all these people, they have such a rich background in story, and all their players do too. Like with improv, with character voicing, like actors, they a good actor is trained to build a huge narrative around whoever they are. And I feel that writers oftentimes do that as well, and they could do it really well, but they get really big about it. With an actor, they get like, this is the character and this is the world they live in and this is what it is. And sometimes with writers, they get bigger and bigger and bigger. And so a writer in a player position feels limited or feels contradictory sometimes. But I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this. What I'm trying to say is that good GMs have the ability to incorporate everyone at the table. While I don't think good GMs have the ability to incorporate good behavior at the table. And that's why a lot of good GMs use Dungeons and Dragons to build their narrative. Because I think they have the skills, they really just need the rules of game to build upon whatever story they want to tell. But what I often get in trouble with is when I sit down at somebody else's game who isn't somebody that I believe to be like a great storyteller or somebody who I'm like I don't know particularly well. It becomes a commitment because that's the reality is that Dungeons and Dragons is a commitment. It's a time commitment. Like I want to build these people. I want to put some extra effort in my free time and a hobby to build something. And if after 3 or 4 sessions, which could be anywhere from like 2 months to like 7 months of time, you suddenly realize, oh, shoot, this person isn't really creating with me. They're creating for me and they're creating for themselves. Like it can be a bit of a pickle because you don't want to abandon it, but you also don't want to be caught in somebody else's story. You want to be able to tell the story as well. So this is my biggest gripe with 5th edition, is that there is no real mechanism for that. And it's hard because what I'm saying could absolutely be contrived into like, well, not everybody's supposed to be a GM. And I don't think that's true. I think if given the right tools and the right experience and the right support, anybody can be anything. That's what I want. That's what I love about roleplay games is that anybody can step into any position at the table and run a game, be a part of a game, support a game. But what's difficult is the feedback. What's difficult is making sure that everyone at the table is on the same page. And what's really difficult is making sure that everybody feels seen and heard in a very safe way. I think there are games that do a lot better than 5th editions while still being as open-ended as it is. I think, I guess that's the conundrum, is that you've got to search a bit. I think you've got to do some soul searching for it. For example, one of my favorite games that I'm playing in recent is, what is it? This game right here. What are they called? It's their 2D20 system, the role-playing game Fallout. Fallout, the role-playing game by Modiphius, I don't know. I really enjoy the Fallout world. I really enjoy that setting. Ask anybody, and ask my wife, and she'll tell you that my top game is Fallout 4. Let the hate roll in. Just let the hate roll in. And it's because of the openness of it. I think when I compare tabletop games to video games, there's no beating the openness of a tabletop game. Like, what I often search for in video games is something that is really open-ended. I think Bethesda's Skyrim, Elder Scrolls, did it. That's it. They did it perfect. Where it's this open roam fantasy game, and there are so many adventures, so many ways to play character, so many ways to end up as a stealth archer. It's fantastic. I love it so much. But I feel like a lot of those games that try to copy that, they just get really hung up on the open worldness of it and the mechanics of it. We're getting really caught up in like these Minecraft, like there is no story, but there's all these mechanics to kind of support the survival story. And it's like, well, I'm not here for survival all the time. I just kind of want to explore a really well-written story from the perspective of a character. And what I love about this campaign so much, what about this rulebook, is that it maintains a bulk of the rules from the video game itself. Like, a lot of it feels like it was just kind of copy-pasted over all the stats for the items, all the stats for the armor, everything. And so you really get to kind of build a character in the same way. You still build the special, you still have like all the hit points, you can use VATs. Like, it's really, really great. And the book itself, it builds a lot in the Fallout 4 universe. Like, when you get into the GM sections of like the world itself and who's there, it doesn't really add a lot. It kind of just uses the basic information of like what you know about the game if you're a diehard player. And so a game like that can be really hard to approach. But what I love is the way that you get to tell the story with other people. I think the rules should be flexible in every game that you play. Rules need to be really flexible. And what I mean by that is that when you're rolling as a character in the Fallout roleplay game, you choose one of your stats in your special, so strength, perception, all the jazz, and then you choose a skill, and then you pair those two up. And then you get to roll 2d20s, and you want to try to roll as low as possible. That's what you're trying to do. You can spend action points to buy more dice. You can spend luck points to re-roll dice. But what you're trying to do, you're trying to get a number of successes through the dice that are as low as possible. So if the GM says, like, you need one success to beat this, then you roll your 2 dice, and as long as one of them, like, beats the score and goes under the score, then it's a success. If 2 of them, then it's an extra success, and you get an AP back. It's great. I love it so much. But on the player's perspective, it gives a lot of narrative control of, oh, we're in this situation where normally, like, I'm a brainiac who knows how to hack inside of a computer, but because, like, I'm under a lot of pressure, I'd like to roll agility and like my hacking skill because I want to be really quick about it. Right now, my agility is a little bit higher in this case, and so I'd like to use that bonus. And I'd be like, yeah, absolutely. Like, I want you to be able to do that narratively. Because when the roll comes in and if it's a success or a failure, like, then I get to play with the agility. Like, everybody at the table kind of goes like, because I'm so like, my fingers are so dexterous, I get to do this, and you kind of like see me like I have cartoon fingers. Like I love describing that. Or if it's a failure, then the GM kind of gets to go like, well, your fingers aren't that nimble. Like because you chose to rely on the tension within you, your anxiety, like you start to feel it, like the seizing and the panic of whatever the situation's around you. Like that narratively is more interesting than sticking to a single skill and a single dice roll 20, like 100% of the time. It's it's such a simple move, like such a simple way to roll dice. Like it almost feels like, well, that's not going to do anything, but it does. It gives some like autonomy, just a little bit for the what the player can do. And games that lean in that direction of just kind of like, hey, let me build a dice pool as the player so I can kind of change the narrative in a way that best suits the situation that I want to see it as. Like that takes so much control out of the GM's plate of trying to like, okay, well, you've got stealth and this and that and this and that. Like, it's crazy. So that's my biggest problem with fifth edition. I've probably got plenty more to talk about it, but my timer just hit up. I don't want to spend any more time talking about it. We'll do another vlog next week, next day. I don't know what this is going to be. I'm going to figure it out. This has been Joe Prata. We've been talking about games here on Roleplay Game. Please check us out if you like to listen to any of our actual plays. I play a whole bunch of games that aren't just Dungeons and Dragons, and I have people come in and play games with us. But you can check us out on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us at Roleplay Game. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see ya later.